The opening text states that, before the beginning of mankind, other civilizations across the universe had attempted traveling to space. On the planet Samaris, a pilot named Mills is with his wife, Aliyah, while they watch their daughter Naveen on the beach. He explains to his wife that he will embark on a 2-year mission with other passengers in hopes of finding a cure for a disease Naveen is suffering from. Then, Naveen tries to whistle with bare hands but has trouble, so Mills teaches her his own technique. Sometimes later, Mills is the pilot in charge of a ship that carries a crew in cryogenic sleep. One day, the ship encounters unexpected meteorite activity and gets hit multiple times by chunks of meteorite. As the ship begins to fall apart, Mills rushes to the cockpit and sends out a distress signal while guiding the ship to land on the next planet. The ship eventually breaks in two, and as Mills watches the inevitable crash, he thinks of his daughter before passing out. Minutes later, Mills wakes up and hears the computer saying they are in an unknown location. He discovers he has a piece of metal on his stomach, so he painfully removes it, then cauterizes the wound. He puts on his astronaut suit and begins investigating the area, discovering the air is breathable. After grabbing a laser gun just in case, Mills leaves the ship and heads into a pool of water where a mysterious creature is swimming around him. He also finds all of his crew's bodies and is devastated to find that none of them survived. Just then, the computer detects a working capsule nearby. Mills rushes to check and is surprised to find that passenger Koa is still alive, so he takes her out immediately. On their way back to the ship, Mills discovers a huge, clawed footprint on the ground, which reveals this planet is Earth 65 million years ago, meaning Mills is surrounded by dinosaurs. The duo makes it to the ship when night falls, and Mills spends the night dreaming of Naveen, demanding to know where she is. The next morning, Mills continues to investigate the area and uses the ship's computer to find the other half of the vessel. He discovers giant bones and is accidentally hit by a geyser explosion that he has never seen before. He then sees some glow in the distance and realizes that the other half of the ship is on a distant mountain. A quick scan confirms it, and as Mills begins to ponder which path to take, he's suddenly attacked by a small dinosaur. Mills pushes it to the ground and smashes it with his gun until it dies. Then more noises come from the forest, and as Mills investigates, he discovers that Koa has left the ship. The girl starts running as soon as she sees him, and Mills runs after her until they both fall down a ledge where they find a large but dead dinosaur. Suddenly, the trees begin to shake and Mills sees an even larger creature approaching. Shortly after, Mills takes the girl to the ship to tend to her wound and learns her name is Koa and doesn't speak English except for a few words. Mills assumes the pods needed to get off the planet are stuck on a mountain, so he lies to Koa and tells her they will find her family on the mountain. Before they set off, Koa looks at video logs Mills received from Naveen during his trip. As she watches them all, it turns out that Naveen's illness worsened during the first year of the trip and she had to be hospitalized. During the first few months, her messages were happy and proud of her father, but over time, she became angry with him for not being there for her. When Mills finds Koa watching the tapes, he immediately shut them off and announces they're leaving. Once he has enough supplies in his bag, Mills and Koa begin walking through the wilderness, making sure to keep quiet so as not to attract predators. Later, a giant bug lands on Mills' neck and when he kills it with his hand, his fingertips are covered in a disgusting sticky substance. Mills tries to scrape it off a tree, but the thing is so strong that he falls with a piece of bark on his hand, causing Koa to laugh. To tease her back, Mills tries to touch her with his dirty hand, but their little game is interrupted when a small tree falls in front of her. On their way to the mountain, they hear strange noises coming from behind a ledge. The duo then sees a small dinosaur stuck in the mud. Koa feels bad about this and runs to help him, which Mills thinks is too dangerous. Because she's not listening, Mills reluctantly helps her pull the dino out faster, but shortly thereafter, a pack of predatory dinos come out and fatally maul the little dinosaur, causing Koa to cry. After the dinosaurs disappear, the duo continue their journey, stopping at a waterfall to wash and fill their water bottle. Minutes later, Mills' scanner loses the mountain's position, so he decides to climb a tree for a better view and scan the area again. Suddenly, he finds a bug on his hand and shakes his arm to get rid of it, but the movement causes the branch to snap and Mills falls, dislocating his arm. As Koa helps Mills pin his arm against a tree to try to put it back in place, a group of dinosaurs hear the sound and approach. To speed things up, Mills has Koa step on his arm for that final jab, and now that he's feeling better, he immediately grabs his gun to shoot the creatures. He also tells Koa to run, and once she's far enough, Mills activates a couple of small bombs that quickly get rid of half the dinosaurs. The survivors keep jumping on Mills and he shoots them one by one. Meanwhile, a bunch of flying dinos land near Koa, so she starts crawling away to hide behind a tree. Unfortunately, the beasts from earlier find her and try to jump on her, but Mills shows up and kills them all. However, there is one that suddenly jumps at Koa from behind and drags her with his tail. Mills quickly goes after them and scares the creature away with one shot. Now Koa is too scared to continue or even be near him, so Mills sits down and patiently gives her some space. As darkness falls, Mills decides to whistle like he used to do for Naveen to try to calm Koa down, and apparently the trick works. After many walks, the duo takes shelter in a cave, where they'll spend the night. Mills then sets up security monitors to warn them of potential danger and uses his scanner to look up at the sky. Later that night, Mills is awakened by sensors warning him of impending danger. When he checks on Koa, he discovers that a bug gets into her mouth, and Mills immediately manages to kill the parasite and save Koa. Shortly thereafter, the sensors start going crazy, and at that moment a gigantic predatory dinosaur appears and tries to attack them. Mills shoots it in the face before he and Koa run through a small hole in the back of the cave. The duo then start looking for a way out. He then tries to dig out the cave, but after a few hours he hardly makes any progress and decides to give up. Moments later, Mills suddenly gets an idea and he uses a few bombs to make the hole big enough for a kid, then gives Koa the rest of the bombs to be safe while she explores. Koa then crawls through the narrow hole and confirms there's room on the other side, so Mills tries to follow her. Unfortunately, the hole suddenly collapses and Mills frantically screams in frustration as he loses contact with Koa. Just then, Koa makes the whistling sound, which she learned to let Mills know she's okay, and she makes it out of the cave. At that moment, Mills hears the dinosaur approaching, thus he grabs his gun and uses his scanner to know where the dinosaur is. When the creature tries to attack him from behind, Mills expects it and starts shooting at it, but the dinosaur hits him and makes him drop the gun. The beast then grabs Mills and bites his arm, but Mills fights back until he reaches his scanner and activates a screeching sound, injuring the dinosaur's ears. With the animal distracted, Mills retrieves his gun and kills it. Meanwhile, Koa makes it outside. She explores the forest alone and finds a giant bone that she can use as a weapon, so she wraps it in poisonous berries and a large leaf before putting it in her bag. Minutes later, Mills manages to exit the cave, and he sees the bright object in the sky, which he scans it with his device immediately. His computer tells him it's an asteroid that will make a catastrophic impact on Earth in about 12 hours. Then, he immediately goes in search of Koa and hears her scream as a dinosaur approaches her. Koa rushes to hide in a log while Mills runs towards them, but he trips and falls straight into a quicksand pit. He tries to call out to Koa, but he slowly sinks until he can no longer speak. Koa hears Mills' call, so she gathers her courage and waits for the dinosaur to enter the tree trunk to drop the bombs on it before running. With the beast dead, Koa manages to grab a long branch and pull him out before sinking. The duo then reunite with a tight hug, and Mills tells Koa the meteorite to survive the last few miles. In the evening, the two finally make it to the top of the mountain, but Koa is distraught to find her parents' bodies dead in their cryopods. She gets angry at Mills for lying to her, but he calms her down after trying to explain that he's been going through the same thing since Naveen died months ago during the mission, and his last memory of her was angry at him for not being there for her. He apologizes to Koa and vows to get her out of there. Suddenly, the smaller meteorite pieces start falling towards the Earth, so Mills and Koa run to get into the emergency pod. As they attempt to launch their escape pod, a piece of meteorite hits the ship and causes it to fall further down the mountain and becomes disabled. Koa wakes up first and quickly hits the start button, but the computer explains that he can't start in this position. As Mills wakes up, a giant dinosaur arrives and begins attacking the pod. Mills fights them off while Koa stays in the ship and waits for it to come back online. As a second dinosaur joins the attack, Mills runs to hide behind part of the ship and repairs the weapon configuration. The dinosaurs suddenly surround him, so Koa grabs the Naveen's tape and plays it on the scanner to create a hologram of Naveen outside the ship. Mills cries, believing he's getting to see his daughter one last time before he dies, but it turns out the dinosaurs were tricked and attack the hologram first. With that distraction, Mills comes out and quickly kills the first creature while the other tries to push the ship to reach Koa. Mills comes right after that too and kills them. Before Mills can return, but the cave dinosaur from before returns to finish off Mills. With a plan in mind, he runs to the geyser and tries to kill it, but unfortunately, it doesn't do much damage, but just then, Koa appears and stabs the dinosaur in the eye. The dinosaur starts banging and goes on another geyser. This time the explosion hits him on the stomach and burns him successfully. Afterwards, Mills and Koa return to the pod and manage to lift off just before the meteorite hits Earth and decimates the dinosaur extinction. The two then leave the Earth's atmosphere and head for an unknown destination. As they head home, Mills closes his eyes and pretends he'll get back together with Naveen soon. So Koa holds his hand to comfort him. So, that's the end of our movie. If you've come this far, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. See you later.